started. Before I let Maya kind of like go through the presentation, big thank you to everyone that turned up and signed up for this event. Much appreciated. I can see like a few returning names as well. Like I have been keeping up with people that are always signing up to the events and stuff. So it's super grateful to have you guys here. As always, this session is going to be recorded and made available on the website, along with the presentation as well. So we'll make that sure that that's available. Guys, I've looked at the slides before. It's very detailed. Like Maya is not playing no games today. Like she came she came super prepared. Just to give her a brief introduction, so she works as an M&A analyst currently at EY. She's going to delve into like, what the M&A process look like, what she does on a day-to-day basis, and just her overall corporate journey as well. And there's like a big life update that she's kind of going through at the moment, which she'll be sure to touch on. Before I hand over to her, what I'll say to you guys is that be sure to kind of share this session on socials, on LinkedIn, talk about how beneficial it was, and we'll also be circulating a feedback link after as well. So you guys look out on your emails for that, and provide feedback, constructive feedback, so we can make these sessions better for you guys. But with that being said, I'll hand it over to Maya.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Stephen. Absolute pleasure to speak for Beyond Education today. I've been following you guys for a while and honestly so inspired by the content you produce, what you do, your purpose. So thank you so much for hosting me today. I'll jump straight to it, and to anyone in the audience, I want to make this as interactive as possible. So I do have a Q&A bit at the end, but if you want to ask any questions throughout, please write them in the chat, and if I see them or if Stephen sees them, we'll just jump on to save questions building up. But yeah, as I said, there'll be Q&A at the end as well. So yeah, just to kick right off, so I'm Maya Sharma. I'm an M&A analyst at EY, and I'm currently doing mergers and acquisitions for them. This is okay, a brief agenda of today. So I'll start by saying who I am, hopefully not too boring for anyone out there, so hopefully you can grasp your attention beyond that. I'll then jump into what EY corporate finance is and how that's broken down, delving deeper into the M&A process, how M&A at a Big Four is different to a bank, and then a wider talk on the actual M&A process. I'll touch upon my experience, why it's important for clients to have an M&A advisor, the key skills that they look for at a junior level, and I'll sum it all up, and as I said earlier, end with a Q&A session. So I'll just kick right off. Okay, so who am I? As mentioned, my name's Maya Sharma, born and raised in North London, so went to Mill Hill County High School for any North Londoners out there, if you've heard of that one. I still live with my parents, I've got 3 brothers, and yeah, live in Finchley area. Studied history at the University of Warwick and graduated in 2020. I particularly wanted to point out the history part, because what I notice is when I say I've done history and now I'm in finance, a lot of people who do humanities degrees ask me the question, why history and then finance? Or like, did you find it hard to go from history to finance? So if anyone wants to ask any specific questions on that, please do. But just in a nutshell, I did do maths, econ and history at A levels. So I did have a maths, econ background, but I chose history at uni because it was the thing I was most passionate about. But whilst I was at uni, I was very sure to kind of stay in touch with the banking and finance route and made sure I did internships in the same industry to make sure I never lost touch of the econ side. So yeah, in a nutshell, I didn't regret doing history at Warwick and then going into finance, but I would say it did mean I had to do things outside of my degree to make sure I was still in touch with the industry. Then onto career history. So in my second year at Warwick, I did an internship at JP Morgan in their operations division. I did say I tried to kind of stay clued up in the finance industry, but with a caveat, I didn't really know what specific things were in the finance industry, like what's the difference between ops or front office role or asset management. So you guys are a step ahead of me really by coming to these kind of talks to get you in the loop of that. So I did a back office role in JP Morgan. When I was there for 10 weeks, I realized that I actually wanted a front office role, and what I quite enjoyed was the client side of things. So the advice I got given was, rather than trying to convert that internship and get a grad role, I should reapply for another internship. So I reapplied for another front office internship at JP. Unfortunately, did that during COVID. It was a shortened intern for 4 weeks and didn't actually convert that internship. So at the end of that, I was like, oh my God, like my life's over. What am I going to do? Put all my eggs in this basket, didn't convert it, you know, heartbroken. Picked myself back up and then applied to EY M&A and got this position. I've got this logo for Pico Analytics here, which is a ESG company I worked at whilst I was kind of applying for jobs on the side, so took a year out. Then EY M&A, and I've got this nursery logo here, which is actually, as Stephen mentioned, my next step, which I've actually handed in my notice for EY, and I'm going to be joining my family business, which is a children's nursery. Very conveniently, my dad actually wanted to sell the business, and because of my experience in M&A, I said, how about instead of selling, let me join you, use what I've learned in M&A, and we'll grow it instead. And that's kind of, yeah, the dream. So that's kind of a brief update of who I am. Sorry, I know I spoke really quickly there.
No, that's good. I usually have conversations back and forth, but I just felt like it was super interesting, so I just
Really?
kept quiet. So it's all
Okay.
good.
Was there anything that you wanted to touch upon, or
Nope,
from
all
what I
good,
said?
all good.
Okay, all right, sweet. Yeah, sorry, I'm just rabbiting on, but pause me at any point. But yeah, so that's kind of the update, and that's where I am now. So I'll delve deeper because the talk is on EY M&A. That will be the focus of today. But if anyone's interested in any of the aspects I've mentioned up to date, please feel free to ask a question in the chat. Okay, let's go next. Okay, so an overview of EY Corporate Finance. So I've tried to kind of lay out a diagram here to give a clear understanding of what EY Corporate Finance is. People often say, you work at EY, does that mean you're in audit? Or like, you know, you're one of the big fours, you must be doing consulting, or you're in tax. And what people don't know is all of the big four, although audit is their biggest business, they do have different departments, and one of which is M&A, which operates in a very similar way to the way M&A in a bank operates. I say very similar because there are some differences, but yeah, I'll delve into that later. So just as an overview, so as I mentioned, EY has an audit team, tax team, consulting team, and then strategy and transactions team, which is where I sit. Within the strategy and transactions, if I'll just kind of speak through and you guys can follow. So within strategy and transactions, there's EY Parthenon, which does your more management consulting, McKinsey, Bain, BCG type of work. Then you've got transaction diligence, which they kind of perform background checks on financial data to check if the numbers that a client provides adds up to the market. Then you've got valuations and modelling, which again is covered in the corporate finance work, and I'll get into that as well, but they're specifically focused to just doing financial modelling. So that's one part. The other part is corporate finance, where I sit. Within corporate finance, you've got 3 sub-teams. For reference, corporate finance is about 300 people strong, and presence in the UK, yeah, all over the UK, so Birmingham, Manchester, London, Bristol as well. Corporate finance is split into government and transport, debt advisory, and M&A. Within G&T, I'll go into it very briefly, but they basically help the government with projects such as they want to put new streetlights in an area, and then the G&T team will help them decide who's the best to go with to put these streetlights in the area, what's the best price they should pay for it, and how maybe long they should be having these streetlights for. So it's very much government-based projects. Debt advisory would help companies looking to borrow money on which bank they should go to borrow this money. And M&A, where I sit, and I'll delve into it deeper, is you're basically helping businesses buy or sell other businesses. I've got a few bullet points there. So within M&A, you've got real estate, TMT, which is tech, media and telecommunications, healthcare and life sciences, and energy and infrastructure. I've highlighted health and energy because these two, I've sat in both of these 2 teams. So I've done a year in health and just over 6 months in energy. Again, I'm going to pause there if anyone's got any questions on any of that. I can't actually see the chat, but Stephen, if there's any questions, feel free to shout them.
Yeah, no questions at the moment, but I think everyone's still trying to kind of take it in because it's quite like a
Okay.
detailed overview of like the different departments as well. But I'm sure the questions are going to be rolling in as you.
Okay, perfect. If anything, by the way, wasn't clear, please pick me up on it and I'll just clarify. But yeah, if I need to kind of make anything a bit clearer, just let me know.
Got you.
Okay, sweet. So that's kind of a big overview of EY Corporate Finance. Um, Take home message basically is the big four do more than just audit. So when you guys are doing your grad schemes, don't just think big four audit, really look deeper into their teams and see what they do and how this might suit your interests.
I guess a question that I have on my side is
Sure.
how mobile can you be when you're in EY and you're trying to basically like move about into these different teams? Like take for example, is it difficult to move from audit into the capital debt to debt advisory team or like vice versa?
Okay, great question. They actually really encourage moves. So
Mm,
a lot of the people I work with actually have come from audit qualification. So they've done audit and then moved into M&A or CDA. One caveat I'd give is they expect you to finish your grad scheme. So say if you've done a 2 or 3 year grad scheme, audit grad schemes normally come with a qualification. So
mm,
they'll want you to do your ACA first, qualify, and then move into another team.
got
But yeah, very, very mobile given you finish your grad scheme and have your qualifications.
noted, noted.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so what is what is M&A? This again, just to say, so this is very specific to M&A at a big four. And I know that M&A in a bank do slightly different things, mergers and acquisitions in a bank, but this is my kind of day-to-day and the kind of three key parts of M&A that I look at. So what is M&A? In a nutshell, it is helping companies achieve their financial objectives either through buying another company, selling their existing business or their whole business or part of their existing business, or raising funds so that they can grow their business. Let me just touch upon each of those in a bit more detail. So sell side M&A. So this is what it says on the tin. You're helping your clients, so other businesses, sell their business. And this can either be the whole business or it can be part of the business, or what I'm working with quite often now in the energy team is specific sites. So for example, an energy company that have loads of different types of renewable energy might want to sell one of their renewable power plants. So you'll help them sell that specific site. The reasons below are why a company might engage in sell-side M&A. So a very, very common one that we particularly see in the big four is someone entering the age of retirement. So for those who were on the call earlier, I mentioned my dad wanted to sell his business, which is why I'm stepping in. He's not selling it anymore, but the reason he wanted to sell it was because he's entering retirement age. Another typical reason is it's a loss-making part of the business, and by selling that off to someone who might want to buy it, it will make the overall business more profitable. So that's sell-side M&A. Again, shout if there's any questions. Buy-side M&A is the flip side. So rather than helping companies sell their business, you're helping other companies buy another business. So yeah, you're on the buy side. Again, why might people want to do this? So Stephen spoke earlier about being in the private equity business, and these are key clients in buy-side M&A. They would want to buy their other business to make returns on this business, grow the business, and then sell it off in the future to make a money multiple and returns. But Stephen, you're probably more knowledgeable in that than me, so please chip in if I missed anything.
Got you, got you. You're doing a great job.
Okay, great. All right, see, and then that's the private equity side. The other people who might want to buy a business is what we call trade buyers, which is essentially people who already have a business within the specific industry. So for example, again, going back to the children's nursery, when I join the children's nursery and want to buy other nurseries, that will make me a trade buyer, because my reason for wanting to buy it isn't to make returns, but it's to grow my own market presence within that industry. So people who already have a slice of the pie and want to make it bigger, and it's easier to make it bigger through buying another business as opposed to starting from scratch and growing it up. So that's it. Sell side M&A, buy side M&A. EY M&A also help our clients with raising funds. So for example, these are typically more startup businesses who want to go to a VC venture capital company to raise some money to help grow their business. So we will help them, and I'll get into this later, but we will help them position their business to these investors in a way that will make it appetizing for them to invest, and then therefore they can grow their business.
Makes sense.
Cool.
So we've got the questions coming through. So
Oh, brilliant.
does healthcare mainly involve NHS/public sector? That was one question that someone wanted you to address quickly.
Yeah, sure. Really good point. So EY M&A Healthcare, we only engage with private sector health clients. And this is what I found quite fascinating, because before I kind of got in the industry, we're in the UK, right? Like we kind of think everything healthcare is NHS. But there's so much scope for private sector health. And I'll touch upon this later. But for example, care homes, like elderly care homes for people with mental health difficulties or learning difficulties, that all comes under private health, because although they get some NHS funding, it's mainly run by private operators, and it's for profit. More examples of that is, for example, people who produce prosthetic limbs. Although you might go to the NHS for this to be kind of like put on you, the producer of this is normally privately owned. Drug companies, AstraZeneca, GSK, these are past EY clients as well. So yeah, sorry, long-winded answer, but in a nutshell, no, not just the government team do NHS deals, but for us, it's only private companies. Only private health. Yeah.
And then the next question, which sector out of the three provide the best and most learning opportunities? So looking at sell side, buy side, and fundraising, which part would you say provides the most learning opportunities?
Okay, good question. I would say either sell side or fundraise. And the reason is because, and this will become clearer later, but you're in the M&A process for longer. So the way I describe that is, with sell side, you're holding your client's hand from the start, which is basically helping them market their business, helping them discuss which financials they want to forecast in the future, all the way to the end, which is completion and choosing the right buyer. Whereas with buy side, you only come in, I don't know how to describe it without the image, but you come in kind of midway through that process, and you're helping the buyer look at what's already been kind of the marketing materials that are already out there for the for the kind of business.
Yeah, and I think I actually kind of agree with you as well, because if you think about it from a buy side perspective, private equity firms would kind of have their strategy already laid out. So 9 times out of 10, they're pretty much buying just the same companies over and over again. Whereas like sell side, you kind of have to get creative in making the business appetizing to potential suitors, right? So I guess there would be obvious learning opportunities there.
I mean, I suppose that's like a subjective, like that's just my opinion. Would you agree? Would you say about like?
I definitely agree. Just thinking about it, like after you said that, because I think with buy side, a lot of private equity firms would have their niche. And it's pretty much just kind of like ticking a box, to be honest. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, but it's pretty much just, this is the kind of company we want to buy. These are what the financials look like, and this is pretty much it. Whereas with sell side, you're trying to kind of make the company a bit more attractive. You need to get
more creative. There's more qualitative side of that involved. It's not just about what makes them more returns. Like it's a bit more creative, I'd say.
So I definitely agree, to be honest. I guess there's still a few questions coming in, but maybe we can move on to the next slide and now kind of
sounds good. Are we doing okay for time?
Yes, we're still on time.
Cool. All right. Okay, so I've touched upon this a bit already, but I'll go into it in more detail. So M&A at Big Four versus M&A at a bank. The biggest difference and I didn't know this before, but what differentiates an advisory firm, i.e. EY, KPMG, PwC, and Deloitte versus a bank, the best way I would describe it is we don't actually hold anyone's money, right? So like all we offer is the people service. So all we are is advisors, right? Whereas banks would offer a lot more services like that than that. So JP Morgan, for example, if you're say Apple, Amazon, you can actually open a bank account with JP Morgan, and that in itself is a service, right? Like actually them holding your money, taking care of your money. So that's how I best understand the biggest difference between Big Four and a bank. Because of that and because of other factors, there are key differences between M&A at a Big Four versus M&A at a bank. The biggest difference, I think, is the clients we work with. So Big Four tend to work with a lot smaller clients than banks. Banks tend to work with more listed companies. So companies that are like on the stock market are the ones that banks normally perform M&A services for. Whereas Big Four clients tend to be more founder-led businesses. So you're working with people who a lot smaller businesses, but they've actually built their business from the ground up, as opposed to say like bigger companies. Because you're working with smaller clients, the working hours are quite different. So everyone says, oh my God, you work at M&A, you must be wake up till 3 a.m. every morning. Like, no, I've had some of those nights, but it's not the regular. So because it's smaller clients, it's about like a 9 till 7:30 kind of role. Because I'm in my notice period, that's why I made a 6 p.m. call. But yeah.
Fair enough.
Also, I'd also say another big difference, I think, from having insight into JP versus EY is the team structure. So I think Big Four, it's normally smaller at the top and more people lower down. So you tend to work with people a lot more your age, and the teams tend to be a bit younger, and there's less partners. Less partners in Big Four versus MDs in a bank, I think, and there's like more kind of heavy lifting at the bottom. That's what I've noticed between the two. So that's kind of a nutshell the biggest differences.
Makes sense. A few more questions that I've kind of popped through.
Sure.
How many mergers would you say an analyst is working on per year? Or I guess the Big Four as a whole in the M&A team, how many mergers are they working on per year?
Okay, really, really difficult question to answer because it's really market dependent, team dependent. So some companies, for example, the partners are more experienced, so they've got a bigger name in the market, so they kind of bring in more deals, as opposed to a more junior partner who might not have as many deals for his team. For context, I've been there for about a year and a half, and I've worked in about 4 deals, none of which have closed, which is again interesting. But yeah, 4 deals, which I think is kind of average for the analysts. It really depends what team you're in.
Got you. And then the next question is, does fundraising involve raising money via debt, or is it advising businesses as to how to become more profitable?
It can be debt or equity. So yeah, it can be via debt. What do you mean by advising how to become more profitable?
Something like that question is more so like, is it advising on like how to basically grow the business?
Is it advising? Not really. So I'd say normally the management team would come to you with a plan, because you're there working with people who have experience in the market. Our partners will give opinions on how to grow the business, but it's not really our job to do that. I think that's more of a management consulting kind of role. For us, it's more so they come to you with a plan, like, I want to sell this business, I want to buy this business, and then you're doing the execution of it, as opposed to more the brainstorming. Sorry, go on.
So it's a lot more mature in that respect. It's kind of like, the founders have kind of had this plan in mind kind of thing, and they're just coming to you for execution type thing.
Exactly that. Yeah. Look, you would kind of say, if it's something again, I'm not a partner, but just from watching, say if it's something they're really against, they might advise on this. So I've seen situations where they wanted to sell, in the next month, but the partner said, no, it's better for you to wait, build up your financials and then sell, because you'll get a better price for it. So they would advise on that, or they'd advise on timing, but I don't think they'd actually say, I think you should buy this, or I think you should sell this side of your business. That I think is more of a consulting role. We're more the actual execution part of it.
Okay, got you. That makes sense. Let us proceed.
Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. So I know there's a lot of content on this slide, but I will talk through so it won't kind of look as messy and wordy as it is on screen. But this essentially is the M&A process. So I've kind of got all the steps of how we go from someone coming to us saying, help me sell my business, help me buy this business, help me raise funds, to the deal actually completing. So 5 key phases: preparation, investor approach, first round, second round, and completion. And what I've done on the bottom here is I've put ticks as to which part of the 3 M&A steps I kind of spoke about in the first few slides this applies to. So sell side, fundraise, and buy side. And this kind of links back to the question that someone asked earlier of where do you get the most learning experience? As you can see, sell side has the box ticked throughout. So you're involved from step 1 to 5, whereas buy side, you only really get involved at actually looking at the business, as opposed to what Stephen and I were saying earlier, which is the thought on how to go to market. So I'll run through all the stages, and please, again, shout if there's any questions. So phase 1, preparation. In this phase, your job essentially is to sit down with the sellers of the business or those who want to raise funds for their business and say, hey, how do we best market your business to the wider market? How do we make it look the most attractive we could make it look? And this is done in a few ways. Through marketing materials, which is producing a brief leaflet, literally called a teaser, and a bigger document called an investment memorandum, which basically tells investors why you should buy this business or why you should invest in this business if they're raising funds. I quite like to think of this like a holiday brochure, like before you buy the holiday, kind of like a sneak peek as to why you should buy the holiday. And in that, you've got all the qualitative stuff, so such as why this space is a good area to invest in or to buy a business in, as well as the financial stuff, which is a specific look into that company's financial numbers to say, hey, they're making this much this year, but 10 years from now, they've got all these amazing growth plans and they're going to be making, 10 times this much. So that's kind of phase 1, which is preparation. Once you've got all of that ready, you're ready to go to market with your phase 2, which is your investor approach. And what typically happens here is you've got a list of investors or people who might want to buy this business, who typically come from the partners' connections within the industry. And it's literally ringing them up, getting in touch with them in email and saying, hey, I've got this great opportunity for you. Are you willing to buy or are you willing to invest? Once that happens, these investors will kind of say, yes, I am. And then we'll go into phase 3, which is the first round. And as you can see, this is where the buy side process starts, because you don't kind of need the buy side process to have preparation and investor approach, because when you're on the flip side of that, that's when you're kind of being approached and the prep is for you to kind of see the materials. So phase 3, which is first round, and this essentially is so you've got your kind of nice, shiny, glossy brochure about why this is an amazing business, and then you kind of want to know more information about this. So this is your first chance to kind of get a call and get kind of an introduction to the actual client. Before this approach, it's EY kind of liaising with the client and being their representatives. Whereas if you're investing in a business, you want to have a discussion with the business owners you're investing with. So in the first round, you're able to talk to them, meet them, and kind of learn more about the business. Phase 4 is the second round. So at the end of phase 3, once you've kind of got a greater feel of the business, you're able to put in a non-binding offer, which is basically like, look, I've seen the brochure, I've spoken to the clientele, and I think this business is worth this amount. So you put a number in. After that, what happens is EY would sit with the client and go through all of these submissions and say, hey, that guy bidded really low for this, or like, hi, these put in a really good bid, let's take them forward. I'm really simplifying it. It's not just a financial number they're bidding on, it's other things such as what we mentioned earlier. Are you going to pay with debt or equity for this deal? Or if you do come in, what are you going to do with the management of the business? Are you putting your own managers in, or are you going to use the existing managers already there? So the financial number's one side of the bid, but there's lots of other parts of the offer that we're required to kind of submit on. Once that happens, they'll the client and EY will decide, and this is where we'll help them, what is the best bid and who do we want to see further information. Then that's when phase 4 happens. So we'll shortlist the buyers and they'll enter phase 4. In the second round, there's something called a data room, which is essentially a collection of loads and loads of documents that this business has produced. Only in the second round are buyers able to have a look at this, and this will give them a really deep understanding of the business. The reason for that is because it's quite a snaky industry out there, so you don't want to be telling all your secrets to everyone, right? So you only want to do it if you really think they're serious about buying your business. So once they have a greater look at it and more conversations with the client, they're then able to produce, they're then able to submit a final offer submission. At this point, again, more discussions with EY and the client on who they want, who submitted the best final offer, and then we'll go into exclusivity with one buyer, which means the discussion just with one person. And then following that, it will be completion of the deal. So signing, closing, and then actually handing over of the money. I know that was a lot to take in. So I'm going to pause there if there are any questions.
That was super, super comprehensive. I was literally like listening so intently, just trying to.
Really? Was it clear? Was there anything
No,
that was like?
no, it was really, really clear and understood. A few questions kind of coming through now. Someone asked, this one is more of a personal question. As someone without a traditional finance / M&A background, how did you add the most value, not only at your internship, but also in your current role?
Okay. Good question. How do I add the most value? I think, okay, so a caveat is you need to be good with numbers. So although I didn't have although I had a history background, they did expect me to do numbers, and in all of my interviews I had to do maths tests. So I'm not saying you can just study everything and have no knowledge of like basic numbers. You do need to have the basics with maths. But I'd say beyond that, as this whole process shows, it's such a people business. Like all of this is about how you create connections with people, how convincing you are, how well you can tell a story, and like, you know, how much you're able to convince someone at a partner level that this is a business that they should invest 30, 40, 50 million pounds, maybe more, buying. So in terms of how I personally would give value, I'd say is my people skills. I feel I'm in an interview here, but like I'd say, like, I think what they really do test is, do you get on with people? Like, are you someone who's confident? Are you articulate? Can you deliver a message? And even at the analyst level, they're looking to see that, because eventually that's what you'll need to have when you're a partner level. I think they do look for people who are like, especially in M&A, like outgoing, know how to hold a conversation. So I think, although if you have the basic math skills, that's quite important to develop. And I think doing history did help me with the more people side of things. So yeah.
Nah, makes sense. And then another thing I wanted to ask, so obviously the M&A process is quite comprehensive, as you've kind of outlined, right? There must have been a steep learning curve going into the industry, trying to kind of like understand this. What was the expectation from the firm in you being able to understand this process, and how was the experience for you just like being involved in this process and learning it?
Yeah, no, great question. I think my experiences at EY is really nice, and the Big Four in itself are really nice, and they really do understand you've come with no experience. Like, even if I did study econ or finance or whatever, knowing what this is on a day-to-day is very different. So I think, as like, in terms of expectation of the firm, as long as you're being keen and showing the right attitude, they know that once you've done a few of these deals, because the thing is, it's the same thing, no matter, like, it's so similar, sell side, fundraise, buy side, no matter what industry you're in, it's the same process. So they know that once you've done a few deals, they know you will pick it up, as long as you're showing the right attitude from the offset. So yeah, they're very okay with mistakes, and they know that mistakes will be made, and that it is a learning curve. But as long as you're showing that you're willing to learn, that's fine.
Got you. Okay then, no problem. 6:40. Think we can progress with the next slides.
Cool. And the Q&A at the end will probably be shorter, because we've been doing it throughout. Okay, sweet. So yeah, I just thought it would be useful to kind of jot down a few things that I've been involved in my year and a half at EY. I've broken this down into healthcare and energy and infrastructure, because those are the two sectors I've been involved in. But I've also broken this down into deals and business development. Let me flick back quickly. But before all of this begins, right, before you even get to preparation phase, you need to do the business development, which is essentially reaching out to clients, pitching EY services, saying, hi, I know I hear a rumor that you're interested in selling your business. You should come to EY before. So so you should come to EY to sell your business as opposed to KPMG or PwC. So alongside deals comes the business development, which is essentially pitching EY services to clients. And then once they've kind of agreed, that's when the whole 5-stage process begins. So yeah, just to touch upon a few, I won't kind of go into all of them just because I'm conscious of time, but if anyone is specifically interested in anything on the screen, just let me know and I'll just kind of speak about my favorite one. But yeah, tell me if you want me to kind of divert from that. But yeah, my favorite deal I've worked with was actually a sell-side deal with an adult specialist care home. This one here, which was in the healthcare team. So this was essentially a care home for adults with learning disability or mental health issues. And it was so in that space, you've got different severity of how kind of severe the mental health or learning disability issue is. And this specific care home dealt with the most severe cases. So often their patients would come from step down from hospitals into their care homes. I found this the best business to work with because I thought it was quite like it had purpose at the end of it as well. So it wasn't just kind of selling a business in a space that kind of did nothing for the wider world. Like I really felt that the purpose and the mission that this client had kind of fitted into my own values as well. Again, it was really interesting. They were kind of based in the Midlands, and they were looking to sell their business because the owner was reached the retirement age. So yeah, that quite an interesting business. Also because it was a care business, but they owned the actual homes, so there was a property element to it as well. So we got to learn about how real estate deals work, as well as kind of actual business deals as well. So yeah, that was kind of my favorite, but I'm happy to touch upon any of these if they kind of spike an interest in anyone.
Yes, I think the energy and infrastructure one would be a good one to kind of touch on.
Okay, cool. These are actually more just because I'm being honest, just because of where like natural passions align. And I think you'll find is that you'll work in different deals and you'll realize some sectors jump out at you, some don't. So for me personally, energy and infrastructure isn't necessarily a sector that my heart is set on. But that being said, there were still extremely interesting deals. So energy deals are very different to healthcare deals because often you're selling, rather than selling a specific business with a name, you're selling specific sites. So for example, like a plant. So I worked on a plant that used wood chips to create renewable energy. So chips would go into this whole machine and then they'd come out and didn't really understand the science of it, come out and produce energy. So this is again really interesting because as opposed to thinking about how you value a company, which might be based on like specific revenues of the company that they're bringing in, a plant is extremely different. So you might be thinking more about how much energy capacity does this plant actually produce? Is that going to change in the future? Would market dynamics mean that in the future this will be valued differently as well? So it's probably what you guys have heard quite often, but valuation is quite a science and an art. So you have to think about how to value a different business depending on what space you're operating in.
And
So yeah,
can you talk us through like the fundamentals of valuation as well? Because obviously you kind of explained that a lot of the way these deals come about and a lot of the way investors are kind of investing in these deals are based on the partners' relationships that they have, right? And kind of calling up like one of their mates and being like, do you want to invest in a deal?
Yeah.
Where do the fundamentals of like the company actually come into play when the relationship is kind of informal to initiate a conversation?
Yeah. No, great question. And it's good you said it because I would have just skipped across a very important bit of M&A. So like valuation and valuing a company is the core part of M&A. I know I said it is relationship based. That's all the icing on the cake. But what M&A basically is it's basically taking something that is somewhat qualitative. How do you value a business, right? And putting a number to that. So the reason I say it's qualitative because it depends on so many factors, i.e., say, for example, the reputation of a business. How do you put a number on the reputation of a business? So that's what I'm saying about how science and art comes in. What the basic way of valuation, and in a nutshell, is you take their current financials, how much money they're currently making, how much revenue profit they're currently making, and you discuss with the founders, what's your plan over the next 5 years, and calculating how will this change your profit to forecast that into the future. That essentially is what valuing is, and what financial modeling is. You're taking a present set of financials, thinking what will change in the future, and using that to produce a number of what does this therefore mean the business will be worth in the future. And therefore how much should a buyer pay for this, because they're not just paying for the business, they're paying for the business plus its growth. But I know that was a bit waffly. Is there anything I can clarify in that? What do you think?
No, I think that kind of makes sense, to be honest. I think it all comes down to like fundamentally the financials at the end of the day. And then also I'm sure that like these partners, right, they've rose through the ranks, so experience also comes into play as well. They've seen these kind of deals like multiple times. They understand, like, you know, what typically it should be valued for and so on and so forth. So I'm guessing that kind of influences valuation.
I mean, your job essentially as a partner is making sure that this client gets the best value for their business. The reason they would want to come to EY versus KPMG or whatever is you're trying to say, because of my extensive network, because of my knowledge in the market, I can get you the best price for this business. So essentially, is you're selling, your job is to that's the whole point. You're right, that's the whole point of all of this stuff. The marketing materials, the relationships, the model, all of this is to basically say, how do I sell your business in a way to make sure you get the best value for your business? And it all plays into it. You know, if the brochure's a bit glossier, maybe that will mean, you know, you'll pay a bit more for it. There's also, you know, that all plays into it.
Got you.
But yeah, okay. Okay, cool. Should I skip through? Cool. Okay. Okay, so yeah, touched upon it a bit earlier, but yeah, as Stephen said, the core of M&A, it is all these relationships, it is all the, you know, the process, all of this. But the reason why it's happening is so you can get the best number on their deal, the best value, the best money, the highest bid on the deal for your client. So why would a client want an M&A advisor? Like, what really is the point? Because you could argue, why can't a client just go to another client and say, hi, would you buy my business for you? And there's a few reasons as to why they'd come to an M&A advisor as opposed to doing it independently. Firstly is what I touched upon before, is understanding the market. So because these partners and because these big organizations have connections with everyone, we will know who the best person to sell your business is to. As I said earlier, all these companies have lots of secrets about how they succeed. So you don't want to be telling everyone this. You only want to be telling a select group of people. And the job of an M&A advisor is to advise you, who should you be going to, who should you be approaching, and who's most likely to buy your business at the best price. So that the market is a key side of that. The next big point is because big companies like EY and those with M&A teams have the resource and the bandwidth to actually conduct these deals. So like producing all of these materials, running the process, having constant calls with the clients and other parties, and keeping track on each buyer takes a lot of energy and time, which is why we get paid to do that job, as opposed to the clients. Many of them have to still run their own business. So we actually help with a lot of the heavy lifting with that. And again, a key point I spoke about earlier is the experience that these partners have. So it's what I said earlier about how a client wanted to sell their business prematurely, and a partner was able to step in and say, no, actually, I think you should sell this a few months down the line because you'll get a better price for it. And only because they know the market, they've worked with so many other M&A deals within that space, they're able to kind of identify this and point this out. Yeah, those are kind of main key reasons. Other things is a lot of the founders we work with are quite emotional because they've built the business from the ground up, right? So sometimes when you're in that situation, you can be so involved in the nitty-gritty of the business that you're not looking big picture. The M&A advisor really can help them look big picture and take the emotion out of it and help them understand what's logical. For example, there might be a part of the business they don't want to sell because they feel attached to it because they built it from 20 years ago, whereas an M&A advisor can say, actually, if you sell this part of the business, it's actually better for your overall company's growth. So yeah, any questions on that side in particular? Otherwise I can just rattle on.
The questions are very, very general at the moment, so I think we can leave it to them.
All right, sweet. Okay, cool. Again, touched upon this a bit earlier, was the key skills they look for at an analyst level when interviewing at a Big Four. I can speak from EY's experience, but one thing that EY do kind of stress is that at an M&A interview for an analyst, they don't want you to have a crazy amount of technical skills. So I know a lot of my friends who do M&A roles in banks, at their interviews, they were asked to conduct a financial model or, actually do the basics of a financial model. In EY, they don't want that. They just want to see your interest for the industry and your ability to do that in the future, but they don't expect it from you at a graduate level. A few key things is strong interpersonal skills, which I touched upon earlier. Although you're not doing that partner job yet, they're expecting you to grow into that and know how to kind of maintain connections with people, be good client-facing role, as well as like maintaining in touch with the market. Interest in the concept of M&A, so an understanding of why a company might conduct M&A. But as I said, the actual technical skills aren't needed. And also the ability to work in teams. So like, as opposed to my friends who maybe work in wealth management, which seems to be a more one-to-one client relationship, M&A is very much about teamwork. So it's very rare that I will kind of, or in fact, I never would have my own client as an M&A analyst. It's very much the team's client, and you're working as a team to kind of fulfill that client's needs. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing. The big kind of take home is, I'd say, at Big Four level, they don't expect you to know the technicals, but they expect you to have an interest in the concept of M&A and why a company might want to do M&A.
And could you just briefly walk us through what the interview process looks like in a very, very brief manner?
Sure, for EY, yeah. Okay, cool. EY do have various ways you can get in. I got in through the grad scheme, but I know some people did do the internship. Interview process is, from memory, so you've got like an online application form, which is CV submission, nothing about your motivations, and it's just, yeah, CV submission, what uni you went to, grades, all the kind of standard stuff. After that, it is a maths test, which is quite crucial because a lot of people, actually, I spoke to HR the other day, I think it's something like 70% of people don't actually get through beyond the maths test. So wow. It's things you can actually, all practice online. But I really would home in that when you do this test, you should practice beforehand, because you don't want to kind of, miss the chance of doing the other stages just because of the maths test. This is nothing too complex, but they expect you to do like GCSE level maths at speed. So things like percentage change, percentage change ratios, those kind of things. And apply it to data. So like, they'll give you a situation and say, I don't know, how much did this company grow in the year, or something like that. But yeah, basic maths, but they do expect it at speed. After that is, let me just think, it's a virtual, like an immersive kind of experience virtual interview, which is like, you've got lots of different situations, like, read this and respond to this email. How would you advise a client in this situation? So it's a mix between situational judgment, but also more practical things as well. Like, read this text and what's your view on whether this client can grow in this market. After that, and again, that does have a video part of it. So all the standard things, which I'm sure Stephen's been kind of hitting home with, is, make sure the lighting's good and you're looking into the camera to make sure you can really ace those video interview questions as well. After that is it's kind of like an assessment center, but they call it a experience day. And you're basically, with a bank, an assessment center is you're competing with others who are going for the same role as you. At EY, what they do is they put everyone in one boat. So you've got graduates, you've got interns, you've got school leavers, all in one situation, and they're just testing your soft skills. So are you able to work in a team? Are you able to be articulate when you speak? Do you have the basic maths? And they're seeing how you compete in that environment, but nothing related to corporate finance. And the last stage is 2 partner interviews. And that is your kind of corporate finance knowledge. And they also give you a corporate finance specific case study, which again is like, you're they'll give you a set of information and ask you questions like, what would you advise this company to do? Like, should they buy this? Should they sell that? So yeah, quite a long,
very extensive process. Like,
very expensive. And you know what? Like, I honestly found it longer than, like definitely longer than my JP process. Like, I think, I don't know why that is, but it's, yeah, very extensive. And they're kind of testing you in all different metrics. Yeah, the whole time.
thank you for that breakdown. Let's move on because we only have a few more minutes.
Oh, I can really talk for England, can't I? Okay, we're at the last slide, so convenient. Okay, so I've just done a quick, very brief overview of the key role of an M&A advisor. And this is, very high level compared to the detail I've given before, but essentially you're helping your client find buyers, find sellers, value companies, which is what Stephen and I spoke about, hiring, organizing and working with other advisors. I didn't really touch upon this, but essentially we're the financial and M&A side of the deal, but there's also the lawyers, the due diligence providers, and what you're going to do as the M&A advisor, you're helping them decide who is the best lawyer for this deal, who's the best due diligence provider for this deal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Delivery of the best deal, so the best kind of money at the end of the best financial outcome, strategic advice, producing transaction documents, which I've spoken about, leading negotiations with buyers or sellers, a leading role in all the financial aspects of the deal, and again what I said is understanding the market dynamics so you can best advise your client on how to get the best deal. Right, I'm gonna pause there for a minute and open for Q&A.
Honestly, Maya, that was a very, very, very extensive, comprehensive session. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. There are a few questions here that I've kind of powered up. So the first one was there a time as an intern where you messed up or in more experienced roles, and how did you overcome the situation?
Yeah, no, great question. I think one thing definitely springs to mind. One thing I found really hard as an intern to kind of get my head around was the whole corporate hierarchy. So like, I came in like confident as hell, maybe too confident, you think I could say anything to anyone, and I think I was very quickly put in my place. So I remember, and it's something you're not taught, like you're not taught how to have like, corporate politics on that side. So I remember my manager had a trip to India when I was an intern at JP, and I said to her, oh, like, you're going to India, it's my dream to always go to India, can I come with you? And she got a bit like, oh no, the intern just asked me to do this trip that I've been planning for ages. Like that's not really that politically correct.
Come on.
I think you're just being keen. So I think in terms of messing up, I think it depends what corporate you're part of, and of course everyone will take that differently, but I think it took me a while to understand corporate hierarchy and corporate dynamics and essentially your place as an analyst or someone junior. So yeah, I'd say you just kind of learn that with time. And I think, caveat to what I said, I think just be yourself, and if that is a mess up, at least it being yourself messing up as opposed to and of course I apologize and said so sorry, my mistake, didn't realize that was inappropriate. But yeah, that's kind of one answer to that.
I think like obviously professional services as well and consulting is quite like a traditional industry, so like hierarchy is like super important.
Yeah,
you probably get away with it in a more
other places.
Yeah, so
I
guess it really depends, right?
Yeah.
All right, the next question we have, is there a commission payment scheme in consulting? So I guess they're probably asking from the context of you being an analyst, and then maybe like the payment structure as well for like how EY gets paid for providing their services. So maybe from those two.
Yeah, sure. And just to clarify, so it's not consulting. So this is like consulting is a complete different part of EY, and but people often say like, oh, EY means consulting, but it's not. So this is actually, as I said, it's like strategy and transactions M&A, and again, people do get that confused. But payment, so again, if often when partners go into the deal, they say we want this amount fixed fee for selling the business, but if we're able to get say 50 million, for every million we get over a certain amount, we want a certain percentage of that. So it's essentially, we call it a ratchet, and it's basically like an incentive for EY to get the best possible amount of money on the deal, and it will benefit the client as well. in terms of like personal payment instruction, like we've had like bonuses and all of that jazz, and that kind of depends on how well you've done as an individual, but also how well the company's done in a financial year.
Mhm. Got you. That makes sense. Another question: can someone with a background as a startup founder get into M&A?
Yeah, I'd say why not? I think by starter founder, what do they mean by that? Like,
By startup founder, so if they like
as,
are the founder of like a business or something, maybe like a
yeah.
startup, is there a possibility for them to get into M&A on the basis that, M&A clients are pretty much founders? Like, is that a possibility?
Okay, fine. I get what you mean. 100%. So I'd say for these kind of companies like EY, Big Four, banks, they typically take you on graduate programs. So they'd expect you to kind of have the traditional route of a graduate degree and then go in. But I do think, is this being a founder without having to go to university, or is it just a general, like, I'm just assuming? Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know their background,
Okay.
but let's say we assume that they're like an established founder, so not someone that's gone to university. They've actually like founded a
Okay.
company.
Yeah. I think like traditionally these kind of companies do want you to have a background, like a degree, but I have met people in the industry who've kind of got into M&A completely non like university educated, but they've just done it through, because all you essentially are doing are buying and selling businesses. Like, it's the same role as an estate agent, right? You don't, of course you need the knowledge on how to kind of value a company, but the basic role of buying and selling you can do. So I'd say, yeah, if you've got that financial knowledge, then I'd say, yeah, why not? Sorry, difficult question to answer because I don't.
That's all right.
but I think yeah, like you'd kind of have the insight of how a business would think.
Last couple questions. What other roles are there in M&A, or does everyone start off as an analyst?
So if you join as a grad, you'll start as an analyst. But as we spoke about earlier, people came from audit and they joined higher up the ranks. So yeah, I'd say analyst is kind of the bottom of the rank, and most people start there as a graduate if you start your career in M&A, but you can kind of pivot from other places. Like, yeah, people come from audit backgrounds or consulting backgrounds, like a mix of places.
I guess audit, it makes sense that they would kind of start higher because they're familiar with financials and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
probably have like a good level of like maths understanding as well for them to even work in.
Yeah, exactly.
Got you. Final question here. So what kind of opportunities are there in M&A? Exit opportunities, sorry, are there in M&A?
Oh, so many, honestly, like so many. So like, as I mentioned earlier, I'm now pivoting into my family business and hoping to grow that business through the knowledge I have of M&A. So that's kind of one personalized opportunity. But I'd say a lot of people go into private equity because what private equity do is they're the buy side of it. So they're your typical buy side client. So rather than helping them buy a business, you're the private equity looking to buy other businesses. A lot of people go from Big Four M&A to banking M&A, more money, more longer hours. So that's an incentive. So many, honestly, a lot of people go into the actual trade side of things. So like, people have pivoted from healthcare M&A with EY into like in-house M&A role.
Like corporate development type of roles.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Like for pharmaceutical companies or something. So yeah, quite a few exit opportunities.
God, that's super, super interesting. Honestly, Maya, like, thank you so much for the session.
Oh.
I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure like our community learned a lot as well. As I mentioned, guys, be sure to kind of like share this all over socials if it helped you. I've sent a feedback form into the chat as well, so you guys can give feedback on how we can improve the sessions. A recording of the session will be available on our website if you're a member, so you can sign up there, and also details of the slide as well. I'm also going to be pestering Maya to kind of share her anonymized CV and cover letters that's helped her like get a job and all her internships and stuff like that as well. So I'll be sure to share that with you guys. But honestly, Maya, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you for honestly, amazing community, and you've done such a good job kind of running it, and so proud that you've kind of got out the rat race to do this, because it's obviously something that's making you smile. So yeah, no, amazing. Would love to get involved more.